Alright, this video is going to be on the top mods for a Honda 3-wheeler. Mostly going to be going over the 185, the 200, and the 200S. Kind of pretty much all the same. So one of the first things that I think is great is going to the skinny front tire. This is a 250R front wheel and hub. You can use 350X, 200X. Some people even use like 400EX hubs and front wheels. You can do that. The bearings are the same for the 250R and the 200X. They fit the same axle. So all you really have to do is just make these spacers here, get her lined up even. Makes a big difference in handling, and it weighs a lot less than the original front steel wheel. I guess while we're talking about wheels, 400EX, 250EX, 250X, all of those have aluminum rear wheels. 9-inch. I really like these. Make it a little easier to find tires versus the 8-inch wheels, and they're a little lighter. After that, definitely get a set of hubs. 400EX hubs fit, but I like to go with these aftermarket Tusk hubs. I think they're 2.5 inches wider on each side. Makes the machine a lot more stable, makes it ride a lot better, and it looks pretty cool. Next up, we have the CRF 230 exhaust. You can get these on eBay relatively cheap. I paid, I think, $75 for mine. So the head pipe here bolts right up to your stock 185 or 200, and then you do have to make a couple of cuts, as you can see right there, to the mid pipe, but it bolts up nice. It's easy to mount up. They have a bunch of different styles of mufflers. I personally liked this one because it just looked cool. Kind of went with the vintage era of the machine. Next up would be this guy down here. It's kind of hard to see, but right in there I have a voltage regulator slash rectifier from an ATC 200M, and that allows me to run LED lights without having a battery. I have an LED headlight, and I put an LED bulb in the stock taillight housing. I think that's a pretty good mod. Bark busters, these are definitely a must. They save your bars from getting bent as easy, kind of give it an extra support. And then they also save your brake levers. Plus these little hand guards are kind of nice to keep the brush and the wind and stuff off your hands. Definitely a good mod. Carburetors. Your stock Honda carburetor is the best you're gonna get. The Chinese carbs from eBay, they're not too bad, but you gotta get good jets. So if I was gonna run a China carb, I would order Kian jets and just replace the jets. When you run your CRF 230 exhaust, you should probably up the main jet. I run a 108 main jet in mine. I'm at sea level. Might be a little different for everybody. I really like these bar risers. They're also from eBay. They go from 7/8 bars to 1.125. So these are a lot thicker. They're also cast aluminum, which is much stronger. They don't bend as easy as like the stock bars do when you roll them over or crash. Number plate. I'm not sure. I'd have to look, but I think that is a CRF 250 number plate. Really cheap one from Temu. I think it was like $8. Definitely a fan of that. I'm not a fan of the stock headlights. They're just kind of ugly. That's like the basics right there. If you've got all of these mods, 3-wheeler definitely becomes more enjoyable. I guess next we'll be going over engine mods. A lot of these old Hondas get tired, and so for the 185 and the 200, the 185 is a 63 millimeter bore, the 200 is a 65. So if you have a 185, you can actually get a piston for an XL 185 with higher compression. They're $11 on eBay. and that's what I've been running in all of my 185s. The 200's a bit more tricky. It's really hard to find a high compression 65 millimeter piston. They're there, but they're expensive. You know, they're like name brand ones that aren't cheap. But definitely, if you have a 185, I would suggest an XL 185 high compression piston. They're like $11, $12 on eBay. Sometimes they come with gaskets. The next big upgrade is getting an aftermarket camshaft. You can find performance camshafts on eBay. They run about 50 to 70 bucks, and they make a pretty noticeable difference, especially if you have the piston and exhaust to go with it. Another mod you can do is timing. Underneath this little cover, you can adjust your ignition timing, and if you advance it, you can get quite a bit more power out of it. You have to be kind of careful because they will start to pre-detonate if you advance it too much. I run mine pretty far advanced, but I run quite a bit of octane booster in my fuel to prevent pinging, and that's been working out pretty good. So overall, that's the most common mods to these three-wheelers. That's the most common questions I have about this on my YouTube channel. So just wanted to answer a few of them. We'll go ahead and fire her up so you guys can hear how she starts. It is a cold start. I'm gonna go ahead and get this on the tripod, so bear with me for that. We got some janky stuff here, boys. We're not legit yet. We got to get some more camera stuff. All right, there you go. That should be good. So basically, to start these things, it's all the same. Full choke's down here. Usually give her just a one little pull till I find top dead center. Right there, she gets hard to pull. That's top dead. And you just a little bit of throttle and give her a yank. You gotta make sure it's on too. Start. Sound pretty good with the CRF 230 exhaust. At least I think so. I like the way they sound. Not too loud, but not quiet either. Sorry guys, it's windy. It's blowing my tripod over. As you can see, LED lights, they do flicker at an idle. They always flicker on camera, but flickering does go away after you rev up the engine a little bit. And you could add a capacitor to make that go away. So as you can see, it kind of stabilizes under throttle. So, there you have it, boys. That's the most common questions I get about